6 feet below, where you are standing right now, the ground is holding a temperature. Your furnace spent $1,100 last year trying to manufacture. It has been holding that temperature every single day since before your house was built. It will hold it long after the furnace rusts out and gets hauled to the curb. No fuel, no electricity, no moving parts. And the pipe you need to tap it costs less than 2 months of the energy bill it would replace. This is the story of a climate control technology that entire civilizations mastered before the Roman Empire existed, that independent engineering research has confirmed delivers 30 to 60% efficiency gains, and that the $240 billion heating and cooling industry made sure was never once mentioned in the code that governs how your home was built. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will know how to install it yourself in a weekend for under $2,000 and what it has been doing beneath the Australian outback for 60 years without a single service call. There is a town called Coober Pedy in the South Australian interior, about 500 miles north of Adelaide, where summer surface air regularly crosses 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The locals solved this the way any rational person eventually would. They went underground, not in shelters, not in temporary structures, in full residential homes, with kitchens, tiled bathrooms, bedrooms, living rooms. Entire streets of houses cut directly into the soft sandstone hills. Roughly 60% of Coober Pedy's residents have been living this way for more than 6 decades. The rock around them holds a constant 72 degrees year-round. When Australian federal researchers formally evaluated these homes as a model for passive climate design, the findings were exactly what the residents had known since 1960. The ground does the work. The ground has always done the work. No bill ever arrived for it. 3,000 years before Coober Pedy, the same discovery was being made on the other side of the planet in the Tunisian highlands. There is a settlement called Matmata carved into the rock plateau of the Dahar Range. Researchers from the University of Sfax documented that roughly 2,000 people have inhabited pit homes there for approximately 3 millennia. Central shafts open to the sky 20 to 30 feet deep, with rooms branching horizontally into the surrounding stone at various levels. The surface temperature swings from below freezing in winter to over 110 degrees in August. Inside those dwellings across measurement periods covering multiple full years, the interior held between 65 and 68 degrees in every season without mechanical assistance of any kind. Not reduced swings, eliminated swings. The stone absorbed what would have been a thermal catastrophe and handed back a livable climate. In what is now central Iran, Persian engineers working roughly 2,000 years ago built an infrastructure system that accidentally became one of the most sophisticated passive cooling networks in history, the Qanat. A hand-excavated underground water channel descending as deep as 100 feet below the surface and running for miles across desert terrain, moved cold mountain groundwater to distant cities through nothing but gravitational slope. Iran still maintains around 37,000 active Qanat systems, some of them operational after more than 1,000 years. But the engineers noticed something beyond the water. The air near the deep access shafts was dramatically colder than anything above ground. So they began directing building ventilation through those underground passages before routing it into occupied rooms. Wind catcher towers on rooftops drew hot surface air downward and across the Qanat-cooled galleries. Researchers who have studied surviving examples documented interior temperatures running 25 to 30 degrees below the outside air. No compressor, no refrigerant. Just the Earth at depth, doing what the Earth has always done. 3 civilizations, 3 different continents, 3 completely independent arrivals at the same discovery. The ground 6 feet down holds a temperature that your HVAC system burns through thousands of dollars annually. Just attempting to produce The engineering required to capture it is not complex. It is a pipe. Here is the physics, and it takes less than a minute to understand completely. Every day, solar radiation loads heat into the uppermost layer of soil. Every night, the surface sheds a portion of that absorbed heat back into the atmosphere. At ground level temperature, chases every weather system, every cold front, every heat wave. Descend further, and that influence progressively weakens. By 6 feet down, in most of North America, the daily swing essentially vanishes. By 10 feet, seasonal variation becomes minimal. The soil at that depth settles at the mean annual temperature of the climate above it, and parks there within 2 or 3 degrees for all 12 months. In Minneapolis, that means the Earth at 10 feet holds around 47 degrees, whether there is a blizzard overhead or a heat advisory. In Charlotte, it sits around 60 degrees, year-round, stable-free. An earth tube captures that stability with the most direct engineering possible. You bury a corrugated drainage pipe 4 to 8 inches across, the kind available at any building supply yard, 6 to 10 feet below grade, running 50 to 200 feet under your property. At the far end, a screened hood sits above grade to admit outdoor air. The near end ties into your existing ventilation ductwork. In winter, air at 15 degrees enters that hood, travels through 150 feet of pipe nested inside 52-degree soil, and arrives at your mechanical room, sitting at roughly 48 degrees. Instead of dragging outside air from 15 degrees up to 68, the furnace is starting at 48. That is a 20-degree lift instead of a 53-degree haul, and that difference represents about 60% less heating load before the burner fires a single time. In summer, the process reverses. Air at 95 degrees enters the intake, and 150 feet of underground transit drops it to somewhere between 65 and 70. Your air conditioner handles a pre-cooled load instead of the full summer peak. Every peer-reviewed study on this technology lands in the same band, 30 to 60% reductions in heating and cooling energy use. The standard objection is condensation. Warm, humid summer air moving through a cool, buried pipe will drop moisture where the air temperature crosses the dew point. This is real, and the solution is identical to what every air conditioning evaporator coil already uses. A slight slope toward a collection drain at the house end. European systems that have been operating since the early 1990s show no moisture complications in correctly sloped installations. There is nothing mechanical inside the pipe. Nothing to lubricate, nothing to calibrate, nothing to schedule inspections for. It sits in the ground with a design life well past 50 years, still conditioning incoming air. Long after you have replaced the furnace, it assists at least twice. Wolfgang Feist demonstrated this at scale in 1991 in Darmstadt, Germany. He built what became the first certified passive house designed to meet nearly all its own heating demands through passive means, including a buried air intake. His colleagues predicted the numbers would not survive a real Northern European winter. The building has been monitored continuously for more than 30 years. Heating energy runs 90% below a comparable conventional structure. The pipe has never been serviced. More than 65,000 buildings across Europe now use the same basic system. Denmark, Switzerland, and Germany wrote earth tube specifications into their official building energy standards during the 1990s. The European ventilation standard covers pipe diameter, burial depth, minimum run length, and drainage requirements explicitly. Over there, this is not an alternative method. It is how buildings are built. In the United States, it has never appeared in a single prescriptive section of the International Residential Code or the International Mechanical Code. Not once, not. In a footnote, not in an appendix, not in a sidebar recommendation. Any contractor who tries to include this in a permitted build faces a detour through an alternate compliance pathway that demands engineering sign-off, specialized plan review, and inspection fees, often running between $2,000 and $6,000. In most jurisdictions, the regulatory burden costs more than the pipe itself. That is not a flaw in the system. That is the system working exactly as built. Consider who builds that system. Both the IRC and the International Mechanical Code get revised on a 3-year cycle through a committee structure run by the International Code Council, a private organization based in Washington. The development committees include representatives from mechanical engineering firms, HVAC manufacturers, equipment distributors, and contractor trade groups. Earth tube installation falls under no standard licensing category. No contractor certification exists for it. No manufacturer lobby advocates for it, because the material is a commodity drainage pipe that any hardware store sells by the foot. There is no premium product. There is no recurring service agreement. There is nothing to sell after the installation is complete. Every HVAC technician who suggests a buried air system to a client is effectively cutting himself out of a share of every future maintenance visit, every future equipment swap, and every emergency call that property would otherwise generate. The global heating and cooling market runs approximately $240 billion annually. Every dollar of that flows through mechanical systems operating continuously inside structures. A buried pipe that trims the work those systems do by 30 to 60% is not a competing product. It is a problem for the business model, and a problem for a $240 billion business model does not get solved through the committee process. That the industry in question largely staffs, the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory assessed earth tube adoption in the United States and was direct about its conclusion: the barriers are not technical and not economic. They are structural. The code pathway does not exist. Homeowners who have installed systems outside the permit process report performance matching the academic data exactly. Warmer air in winter, cooler air in summer. No service calls. Nothing to fail. Now step into a house where this has been running for years. It is January in the high desert of New Mexico and 11 degrees overnight. The homeowner has not touched a thermostat since November. The ventilation pulls incoming air through 180 feet of pipe buried 8 feet below the south yard, and it arrives at the intake grill sitting at 51 degrees. The heat pump lifts it to 68 from there. The work that would have cost $40 in gas this morning cost $4. Press your hand near the intake vent. The air flowing through is already 40 degrees warmer than the outdoor temperature. The ground did that. 6 feet below the back lawn. The same ground beneath your property right now. The installation is not complicated. You rent a trencher for a day. You lay corrugated HD, PE drainage pipe 4 to 6 inches across, 6 to 10 feet down, sloped slightly toward a drain at the house end, a screened intake above grade at the far end, a standard duct fitting. At the near end, a low-draw ventilation fan, and the job is done. Material cost runs $800 to $2,000 depending on run length. Most installations are closer to the bottom of that range. The pipe will outlast every mechanical system in your house. No filter changes, no refrigerant charges, no annual inspections, no contractors. It sits 6 feet below the yard and does what Matmata rock has done for 3,000 years, what Coober Pedy sandstone has done for 60. The ground holds a temperature your furnace cannot match for free. The pipe connects you to it. The code never mentioned it, because the people writing the code earn their revenue from the equipment it would replace. That is not a theory. It is a membership list. Your heating bill this winter will be whatever it was last winter, unless something changes. The pipe that changes it costs less than 2 months of those bills and installs in a weekend. The physics has been sitting under your property since long before the house was built on top of it. Ancient communities on 3 continents figured out how to use it with nothing more than a shovel and careful observation. The modern building code looked at the same evidence and decided you did not need to know. The ground was not consulted on that decision. It kept working anyway.